I'm curious about your thoughts on two factions of the blue side of politics, those that want a new system that serves us all closer to socialism, and those that want to get back to normal, the kind of US government that we had before November. How can these two sides come together to fight fascism? This is a really good question, and I'm not sure that I have all of the answers here, but I appreciate you wanting to open up the conversation. I personally think anybody who wants to get back to normal was somebody who had tremendous privilege and didn't understand how bad things were before, and or lacks imagination for how we deserve so much more than we actually had before. I do think there's a place here to educate people that we can't go backward. This regime is reactionary. They are regressing the United States, right? A reactionary movement is one that wants to take us backward in time. They look at some period in the past with rose-colored glasses. I think a lot of MAGAs thought, white MAGA men thought 1950s America. Donald Trump thinks the age of robber barons. He wants the Gilded Age, where there's no worker protections, where they can pollute as much as they want. Donald Trump loves to talk about coal. He's done nothing, by the way, to help coal miners in West Virginia. He has not fixed the coal industry, and neither has he done any work to put in infrastructure to help revitalize the economy in West Virginia. I want to talk about that more in a little bit. Okay, before I go off on a tangent on that. Trumpism is reactionary. It is regressive. It is making us less than we were. We can't actually go back to what we had before, because if you're looking at October of last year, going back farther during the Biden administration, or even back to Barack Obama, there were so many systemic problems that all contributed to the position that we're in right now, right? If we were to go back to normal, we would go back to a system that wasn't working and was inevitably leading us toward fascism. We can't go back if that means that Citizens United is still in place. We can't go back and have a Supreme Court that is controlled by a Christo-fascist, uber-conservative majority. We can't go back to when Joe Biden could have expanded the court and he chose not to. We can't go back because that would just take all working class people back to a place where we were all suffering. Our quality of life was being reduced. Our expenses were increasing. The American dream felt ever further and further from our grasp. What about the normal that we had before was working? I know it's so easy to believe that everybody who voted for Donald Trump is just like the most horrible racist you've ever seen, and that was the only reason that they voted for Trump. But that's just not true. I do not want to in any way dismiss or minimize the fact that racism played into it, that Donald Trump stoked racism, right? As any of the conservatives do. That was his attempt to use generations of existing racism in the culture and to stoke that to create class divide, because movements like Trumpism, where it's the super rich, it's the oligarchs wanting to be robber barons and exploit the shit out of all of the working class, they depend on the working class being divided. They depend on us fighting amongst ourselves. Racism is a very useful way to make sure that white working class people hate the folks they should be in solidarity with, blame the folks that are not harming them that they should be in solidarity with. It's a very, very useful tool for people like Donald Trump and the oligarchy. So that was all in place. That was not working. Citizens United, dark money in our politics. We can't go back to that. So I'm sorry, I'm getting on a tangent. I totally understand what you mean here, right? I struggle to straddle this line, right? Because I voted for Kamala Harris. I will talk up establishment Democrats if they are doing the right thing, right? I always want to give big praise if somebody I don't expect to actually do their job steps up and does their job. I'm going to be like, yes, more of this. I want to dangle that carrot, and I want to absolutely give them their flowers when they do well. But I'm definitely on the, I have very little faith in establishment Democrats. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, it's really great that they held strong for this government shutdown. I don't know how long they're going to hold out. But I have said from the beginning that they are not the leaders for this moment. They are not equipped for this moment. And the fact that they are the kind of corporate Democrats who want to take us back to what we had before and think that that's good enough, because that was a position where they were funded very well by all of their dark money, by all of the foreign interest, and super, rich, all the billionaires were funneling all of their money into our politics and controlling our government and making the the United States federal government work for corporations and not for the American people. Why would we want to go back to that? That's not normal. That should never have been normalized, right? America can and should be a country of, by, and for the people. So I guess I would try and think about how to frame that positively to people who are the go back to normal. Be like, you know what? What wasn't working for you back then? A year ago, what really sucked for you? Because I know for a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump, a lot of working class people who are struggling in rural America, they were not prosperous under Joe Biden. The economy looked really good. That's because corporations were raking in record profit, and record amounts of our wealth were being transferred up to the super rich. And there's no such thing as trickle down economics. It doesn't fucking work. And so people who are sad and angry and feel that the American dream is not extended to them, they wanted to vote for the other guy, and they listened to the rhetoric of Donald Trump saying, I'm going to make America great again. I hear you. I hear that you're struggling. I see your pain. I'm going to make you prosperous, right? He went into West Virginia and said, y'all are all struggling. I know you historically always vote Democrat because this is a pro-union state, but you know what? Joe Biden didn't make you prosperous. The coal industry is going down the toilet. And he lied to them and said, I'm going to make coal big again. You're going to be prosperous again. And when you're looking at struggling communities that are desperate, they believed his lie. It's too easy and naive to say it was just racism. We know that people vote on the economy. We know especially swing voters vote on, I wasn't doing well under this guy, so I will pick the other guy. That's their motivation. And we also saw, 15% of Joe Biden voters that didn't vote for Kamala Harris. And only 5% of those voted for Donald Trump. So we have this chunk of folks who were not excited for Kamala Harris. And we could talk about whether that was misogynoir. We could talk about the statistics about how this country won't elect a woman. I do think, from my entirely unscientific perspective here, there's also a component of Kamala Harris was tied to Joe Biden, and people didn't feel that they were doing well under Joe Biden. And I think that relationship, that association made it very difficult for people to hear the things that Kamala Harris was talking to them about. So I think when we're looking at working class people who voted for Donald Trump and are now like, oh, this is not good, or when we're looking at establishment Democrats who are like, I just want to get back to normal, I see that as an opportunity where we can talk to people about how normal wasn't working. Normal created a dynamic that got us where we are now. Normal was already this funneling of the wealth of the nation up to the super rich. The super rich were getting richer and richer and richer under Joe Biden, under Barack Obama, under Bill Clinton, under George Bush. This has been going on for decades, and it has built to a head now. So we cannot go back. But what is it that you want going forward? What would it look like to have an America that serves the American people instead of corporations? What would it look like for you to have a good quality of life, right? Maybe this is a regretful Trump voter. It's like, what are the things that you wish that you had that would make you not have to struggle so hard that caused you to vote for Donald Trump? I guess I just see this as an entry point to have a really good conversation. I do think the term socialism has been so incredibly poisoned in this country. I saw a TikTok the other day where someone said, mad props to the person who absolutely poisoned the term socialism. Well done. Generations later, people are still really fucking scared of that term in the United States. I think it's far better to talk about specific policies. For example, universal health care. Very popular when you talk to the American people about it. Also, wealth caps and taxing the super rich and being very specific about what you mean. Also very popular with the American people. Worker protections, rekindling the labor movement. So many union folks, especially in Ohio and Pennsylvania, voted for Donald Trump and have lost. They've forgotten their labor roots, and they voted for a billionaire funded by the world's richest man. So how can we help rekindle the labor movement? I guess I don't want to see these folks as two factions, because I think if you talk to this back to normal crowd and you ask them, what did you like that we had before? If you are speaking to a regular everyday American, I think that the messages of Zoran Mamdani, of the DSA, of the Working Families Party, of Healthcare for All Oregon, those kinds of messages really resonate with American working class people. If you take away the scary terms they've been conditioned to freak out over because of residual McCarthyism or what the fuck, I don't know, whatever. Vestiges of Rush Limbaugh in the popular consciousness, I don't know. So I guess for me, I would talk about, what policies do you want? What is it that you think would give you a good quality of life and, a better future for your children? How do we get there? What does that look like? Because I think if you are talking to regular people and not politicians who are backed by dark money, by Israel, if you're not talking to politicians who are prioritizing their big donors, billionaires, corporations, but you're trying to build a mass movement of regular Americans and progressive politicians, I guess, I think the thing to do here is talk about policy, talk about a vision for the future. What is it that we want going forward? What is it that we deserve as the American people?